Welcome in, everyone. This is our flow recap for the week of 9/26/2025 to 10/3/2025. As always, we're going to look at the previous Friday's flow, and we're going to look at the flow throughout the week. We're going to look at the max return on the contracts. A lot of quick movers this week, a lot of shorter term options, and Friday we actually had a lot of longer term options, so end of the video is going to be a little shorter because a lot of the moves on Friday haven't been made, so we're not going to spend too much time on those. But again, for those that are new to joining, we look at that full range of the contract. We kind of dive into the flow, kind of see how the flow reacted, contracts moved. And again, if you're new, I do post everything in real time. I don't edit my posts. I don't change anything. We recap everything that we post. There's a couple sections in here that aren't recapable, but everything that's in the recapable sections we touch on and go back over. So let's get started here. So last Friday, 9/26, not going to spend a lot of time on this. These were in last week's video at the end. But the SPY calls here, pop these in. These actually obviously made a really great move. Entry was here. Obviously you can see that 5.5 million here on the calls. Massive run up, hit the high on Friday. 826 on those for a high. Let's see where we are. 826. Sorry, I got 812 for a high, which would give us a max return of 103% on those. Seeing a little bid side action here on the first. Obviously not a lot of contracts changing hands and carrying over here that day, so just this is telling me there's a lot of contracts changing hands at intraday. With that, not a big open interest update, so that whale probably took some profits there, passed them off to somebody else. So good move on those. The 1017 DVN 38.5 calls. This one, these haven't really made a move yet. Obviously, a couple weeks left on those still. Our volume is still all there on those, but those contracts would be trading down pretty significantly. They'd be down 84% if you're still in. One thing with the flow that I always tell people, you need to manage your risk. You would never want to see a trade come down this far on your own end. I mean, I risk maybe 15% max if I'm just taking random flow trades. And this all kind of just goes back to your risk management. If you're opening up expecting a full loss, great. If you're going to actually try to trade it and adjust stops up, size out responsibly, obviously you're not going to go down 80% on something like that, but just kind of want to tell everybody what the contract's at, because sometimes you can get a discounted entry on these contracts. Obviously there's a little time on those, could see a bounce, you never know. Intel calls, the 1017.39 calls. Good little move on these. Had two moves on these actually. So again, your original entry back here on the 26th, those actually ran that same day. Hit 160 here. We hit 160 as well on Thursday, and then 171 yesterday on Friday. So that's a 35.71% return. Just kind of looking at that flow here too. 10-1, you have that big red spike here on that candle. Again, Intel highly traded, so you're going to see a lot of volume. So paying attention to that open interest is huge. You can see all that volume here on the first, and about 2,300 contracts dropping off here. So hard to kind of know what's going on when it starts to get too congested like that, but my guess is whale might have sold for some loss there. But again, I mean, you have enough time. This is why I always tell people, again, adjust up stops and trade for yourself. You don't need to follow the whale off a cliff. I mean, you're making a move from 132 to 160 on the day. You probably want to take some profits. But again, good move on those, 126 to 171. And what I like to do when I look for flow, I like to at least look for a 10% minimum return. So anything under 10% I consider a loss. But obviously 10% still a good return. You can always put a stop on it, break even, but I consider that a loss in my spreadsheet. So let's go on here. So CCL, these ones made a really quick intraday move, so this was one of those. Let's pop this back to Monday. So your Intel call actually, or Intel, CCL calls came in here. We had 5,900 contracts at 71. We like to look at that raw flow feed. Let's see if we can find where our whale was coming in here. Scroll on down. So what I like to see here, I like to see that IV spike when that flow comes in. I like to make sure that spot is filling at the ask price, and I like to make sure my timing's all the same. And one thing is, you can, well, how I track my contracts, you just kind of hit this little bookmark thing over here. So this is why, and I'm going to pop this out here. This is why you just see kind of some of these smaller premiums here. That full premium is obviously, I should pop this back here. Pop this back to Monday. That full premium is actually that full candle right there, wherever you do it at the time. But you're just selecting that one contract, so that's why you're seeing that smaller premium. I know I had a couple questions about that as well too, but you see that IV spike here. You're coming at the ask, IV stays up, no big changes or drops. Flow looks good there. So knowing these actually were weekly contracts, knowing that these are weeklies, and CCL dropped pretty hard after earnings. Maybe they're looking for a quick bounce, and this is just where screen time and kind of market knowledge, fundamentals kind of come in, where you may see a bounce, could see a quick support spot. But when we come in here, so this is the part that I kind of want everybody to pay attention to. You see these so our whale was about 5,900 contracts. You see about 1,300 there. So you're at about 3,400 now with this next candle volume there, plus another 2,700. So you're very close to about what that whale had. Obviously, you're lacking a couple. I'm not up to the second on, or the exact number on that, but you're very close, and you see how that climbs when that contract price goes up. Now, when we come in and look at the 29th, you look at all that volume on the day. A decent chunk of it carried over, but some of that came off. So this is kind of showing to me that this whale probably took some profits there, and you can take profits at the ask. That's another big misconception where everybody says all ask side flows a buy and all bid side flows a sell. Completely untrue. You need to actually go in and kind of look at the flow, and even looking at the flow, you will never 100% know. That's the thing. But he's making a quick move here. 8:50, 8:55 Central Time, up to about 9:05. I mean, you have about a 20-minute trade there on weeklies. And knowing, again, this is just kind of knowing like the fundamentals of contracts and all that, weeklies are going to have higher theta. So kind of looking for a bounce there, and this was post-earnings. Should kind of maybe know there's a little more volatility there, but quick little bounce there from that 70 to 97 there, so that's a 38.57% gain. And let's go on next to the AVGO calls. So these, again, here's our flow. And let's pop this in here. Find where our whale entered. Let's see. Alright, so our whale entered here at the beginning of the day. So sometimes I won't take flow if I don't have any flow before it to see how that IV's impacted when that whale comes in. But your IV's up here, flow coming in at the ask. You are seeing that ask side fill here. And you do have some flow after here, a little heavier size and premium with a little kind of an IV drop and then a spike. This flow didn't come in at the same time, so again, this is kind of where paying attention to the time matters. And this can happen with any trade where you have flow come in after. You never know, I mean, what's going to happen. Obviously, you have it come in here. So now if this flow is just sitting here like this, I would probably read this as a sell at the ask, which now in hindsight would make sense because you can see how it dropped. But these came back up to For some reason, it's saying I got a high of 7 here on Thursday. I know they were in the money at some point on Thursday, so that probably is your reason why. You can see where this is your whale that comes in here and then drops. And you just get a lot of volume. So again, it gets hard to kind of track that. But a lot of volume here Thursday at the high. I know, again, they were in the money. I don't think they were that far in the money. But what I'm going to do with this one is I'll mark it as break even, because I don't want to say the 7 high there, because that's a little misleading there. So we're going to do break even on this one, just because you would have had time to, come out here and you're in the money. Obviously, spreads widen and see that spread, and with that delta on those contracts, push those contracts up a little quicker. And with them being so close to expiration on Thursday, that probably helped too. But these actually, you know what, we will go with the high here on Friday. I'm gonna make the executive decision here. We're gonna give it a small little win, because you have that high there of 7 on the second, and then I believe they were in the money yesterday at some point too as well, probably at open there. So we're gonna say 365 here for a high. Or no, we're just gonna do it with a break even. We're gonna do a break even on this one, because that's tough too. That's only like 5%. So we're going to say break even on that one. But again, you would have had 2 days there to at least get out at break even. So affirm the 10-10-75 puts. Really great move on these ones. And we're going to pop this back to the 29th. We're going to start here, down here. Look at all that volume here on the day. Barely any open interest change, so we know that whale closed that same day. Now let's pop this to the 1-day view and pop this back to the 29th. So here's your whale, 250. Kind of popped a little bit up there to 261, and then that whale got out at 234. That's kind of an odd trade there for me, because now when you look at that full range, and we're going to pop this out 7 days again. When you look at that full range, because you see that volume, that second volume candle, it's about the same there. This whale, for some reason, closed, and then here's your big run into the 30th with a high of 550 there. So those did hit 116.54%. It's just odd sometimes what these whales do. You never know their full view on the trade, what they're exactly doing. So again, this is where risk management comes in, but at the time, that's a lot of volume, and you just kind of look at that raw flow again. And this is a good example here. You see how that IV kind of drops here when that flow starts to come in. Timing's not fully there, so at first I would probably kind of be a little cautious with this, but again, I say it's a repeated hits ascending fill, so that's just kind of telling you that spot price is increasing. Just follow this all the way up. So, okay, IV drops a little bit here as well. So, now if this just first chunk of flow was here by itself, I'd probably pass on it. But, again, this is kind of why reading that flow around it is important. You see a spike here again in that IV. Drops a little bit again, and then it spikes again, drops a little bit. That IV's kind of all over the place there, but that looks like aggressive call or put buying. I almost said calls. And you did get your move here into that next day. Really big gap down there. And still a week on those, and then you got some more volume here on Friday. Yeah, really interesting chain here. Even on Friday, 255. They're still slightly green. Interesting. But yeah, all week, you've been able to get some profits out of there. But your high of the week, that 550 there on Tuesday, 116.54%. All right, up next, the 1010 RGTI, 28 puts. This whale got out pretty quick on these that next day. Guessing they were probably looking for a pullback after the run-up. Here was your flow. And again, you see how that IV spikes when it comes in. That flow's coming in at the ask. It's not 100% going to work every time. It's not a math problem where it's going to work every time. The people placing these trades, they're whales as well. They're humans. They can be wrong. So again, the risk management comes in. And our whale, getting 213 there, looks like they got out here about 141 there. 141-ish here at open, and looking at 10-1 here. Obviously, a lot of contracts changing hands. That open interest drops as well there too. So tell me that whale probably got out there about a 33% loss for that whale. And again, should you be going down 33%? That's your risk management there. Me personally, no. I'm maybe 15% max, and again, it just depends on the flow and it depends on the days to expiration. Shorter days to expiration should be more cautious. Longer term can be a little kind of looser, I'd like to say. But again, it all comes down to your choice. Are you going to ride these to zero? Are you going to be smart? You should always have a plan going into the trades. So up next, on to 930 here. The 10-3 CVS 75 puts. These actually, again, made a good intraday move here, and we're going to pop this back to the 30th. So here was our flow that came in here, 106. Pop these results out, just take a peek at it. Okay, we got to pop these back, sorry. Okay, technical difficulties, 1 second. When that flow's expired, sometimes it can be a little goofy to pull back. But again, just kind of looking at that IV, you're staying up here. Spots coming in at the ask. IV staying up, looks good, looks good. And you just see that movement here, 106. It's just a nice steady climb in that day. And again, you know they're weeklies. You know Theta's going to be aggressive. They're looking for a quicker move. That's a pretty good, nice, quick move. I mean, 9:20 Central up to 11. I mean, hour and a half should be good. And you can see a lot of that volume on the 30th here didn't carry over. So you're seeing those spikes here, seeing profits coming off here slowly. And again, perfect example why you don't need to follow them off a cliff. A lot of that volume, I'd say about little less than half is still in. Look where the contracts are now. You have to look out for yourself and take profits, but nice smooth move on those. 105 had a high of 190 there on the day, so that's an 80.95% intraday gain. Something like that, you should be taking some profits. GLD puts, again, longer term here. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these right now. They're still kind of waiting for a move. 1.2 million on those. Came back up to break even here on the 2nd. Then kind of dropped here on Friday. They're trading at 4.95.5. So whales down about 30%. Again, this is something where I'm looking for a discounted entry if I'd like something like this. Again, 48 days, over a month on the contracts. That whale has time on those. And these good one here. Let's pop this back to the 30th. So here's your whale. This whale took profit same day. Very clear one here. We're going to start down here. You see all that volume here on the day, 16,000. About, we're going to say 5,500 there, 5,500 there. Obviously, you see that candle volume's about the same there. So your ask side flow comes in here. You see that flow come up. Whales getting out here at 27. These actually hit a high of, I think, 37 here on the day. So 37, 32 up there, yep. Whale was out at about 28% on those, but they did have a max return of 76.19%. So again, just you can see how clean this is, and this is kind of why you see a lot of people talk about the ask side flow being a buy and bid side being a sell. This is a good example of that because here is your spike in the flow. We're going to kind of look at that. So that IV staying up there, flow coming in at the ask, and this is a wider spread. And keep in mind that fill and that percent difference between that bid and ask is a lot bigger too than like a SPY where it's like a 335 and like 340. 17 to 21, that's a big percent difference. So you notice how that IV's up. Now let's look at that bid side candle. So you notice, I'm just trying to look, I haven't looked at this one yet, but that IV's down there a little bit. So that IV's kind of all over the place here and then drops a little bit more in here too. So to me that would look like a sell. I mean, when that IV's kind of all over the place and you don't get a uniform, to me that's, it sometimes can make it harder. I'm typically looking for that IV to decrease fully there, but do have a part of it being a multi-leg here too, so that kind of throws a wrench in it as well too, but part of your multi-leg trade there. But those again making a good move there intraday. 21 whale out at 27, that high of 37, so 76.19%. And you just see how that call premium spikes there too when that flow comes in. Really nice looking flow there. Disney, these ones made actually a little gap up here. So 361, we opened 460, believe 465 was the high on the day there. So 29.17%, really solid return. And one thing I like to tell people is you're up that much, you can throw a stop on. If the contracts fall, 'cause they can see they clearly fell that next day, you can always get in a discounted entry and find a good support spot for a bounce. Because now if you would have waited and got in here at 2 or 230, whatever, they came back up 265, and you know this whale's still in. You know this whale still has time. Again, something to kind of watch for on something like that. And just you see all that volume still there. And even this, I mean, this is still a discounted entry, 265 up to that 361. And again, perfect example why you should always be taking profits when you see profits. But 29.17 max return on those. Now we are into October, the 10-10 FIG 55 calls. Great move on these. Let's go here. So 75 was our entry. Come here again, you see that. So this is kind of where you see that IV really spike here because you have that flow before it. And this is kind of why I'm always saying you need to see that, how that flow reacts when it comes in. So that IV spikes, flow coming in at the ask, all the same timing. Just following this up, it looks good. I do see where it says descending fill here, so I want to see where it shows me that. So you're coming in 1 cent below the ask. This is still on the ask side essentially. But now if this came in at like 67 or something, I'd be a little more cautious on something like this. But you see that IV kind of come back up here again as well too. So that reads as a buy to me. Then we also had some other volume come in here that same day, a little bit later. And these did kind of move same day as well. But look at 10-1. You see most of that carrying over, and a lot of that volume still kind of there. A lot of big spikes though, so it gets to be a little kind of difficult, but obviously your big move here on Friday hitting 242 for a high. Massive move on those. 222.67%. And then the 10-10 BSX, these were posted on X as well. This was textbook flow at the time. Clean opening trade. Majority of it carried over. When we look at that raw flow here, again, you see when that flow starts to come in here at about that 10:05-ish, just you see that IV increasing, spot price increasing from down here, IV increasing, drops a little bit here. So this is where, again, reading the flow around the flow as well is important. Here's your big size. and your big premium, IV spike, IV spike. Flow reads as a buy, and obviously really smooth move on those. 168 for a high on Friday, 223% on those. CRDOs. This one's a little more difficult, I'd say, right now. You had about 2,100 contracts here. 730 of them carried over. So you see 1,000 there, 1,000 there. There's other volume here on the day, but to me it looks like that whale may have got out quick for 340 here. Then it crashed. Then we came back to a break even yesterday. So they did come back up to break even, but they are trading at 320 right now. So that whale would be down 20% if they're still in. Doesn't look like they're still in here. Really interesting piece of flow there. So it's marked as a 20% loss. CVS, the 10-17-73 puts. Getting a little time on these still. Dropped. See, like now if I'm looking for a discounted entry, this is something I'm looking for a discounted entry on. 13 days. Pull up a chart. See if we're at a good resistance spot and maybe grab them. But all your open interest is still in there. Whale would be down 65% though. HD, the 10-10-405 calls. Again, quicker move on these. Here's your flow, 249. We came up and hit 305 here on the day, I think. The 30th. Nope, the 1st, sorry. 418 was a high on these, actually. Nope, okay. 418 was in the open. So your high after the flow came in would have been 305. There, 305, 307-ish. So about a 23% move there within about 40 minutes or so. So a good move, and again, you know, they're shorter term, so something to kind of pay attention to. Just looking at that flow here again too. Yeah, you never know what the whales know, so you have to manage your trades smartly. And wider bid ask here, IV spike when it comes in, IV stays up. I mean, there's still 6 days on these and they're 3% out of the money, so you never know what can happen. I mean, they're trading at about 150s right now, so a little discount if you want something like that. But we did get our quick move here. So those 249s to that 307, so 23.29%. Palantir calls. These ones really interesting when they came in. 878 here, and then you had that massive bid side candle come in here after, and these did grind up really slowly that same day. Really nice grind up that for most of the day. 966 there. Actually 995 was your high on the day, so 13%, and then obviously Palantir had that drop here. A lot of that volume is still there, or open interest is still there, sorry. Have to check it on Monday, but that's a really interesting one. And again, when you look at the flow, your flow, that IV spikes, you're coming in at the ask. IV continues to spike, coming in at the ask, and spot price increases. So it reads as a buy. Interesting to see what happens with this one too as well, but 27 days on them. They're 10% out of the money. Obviously, Palantir can move pretty fast. But those did make a good intraday gain, and this would have been one where you could kind of put a stop on, trailing stop or something. But 13.07% on those. CNC, these ones are down. Filled at 1, trading down at 30. That's probably not going to come back. I'm 6 days on them. Volume's still there. And then Intel puts here, 172, obviously again, some more time on those. Those actually closing at 164 here, so they're down 4%. Have to check that open interest on Monday to see if that increases here or not, but my guess is looks like possible adds here. And Friday, we're going to kind of hold off on Friday right now. A lot of that flow on Friday hasn't made a move yet, so I don't really want to kind of dive super deep into it. A lot of it's kind of down 4, 5, 7% or so. Like silver, well, we're going to just look at them quick. Silver, I mean, 20 days on them. You're trading at 1 now. ABBV, again, 20 days on these. Haven't made a move yet, and this is kind of why I went to recapping that Friday flow that next week, because it doesn't always move. The SNDKs, again, coming back here towards the end of the day a little bit. XLF, again, 76 days, they're probably not going to make a move that same day. 94, trading at that 86. QBTS, ran a little bit, 259, hit that 274, and then kind of dropped, and then 237 right now. Again, some time on those. And then SPY puts, these actually closed up here, 93, about 107 there, so 13% or so on those. But we'll recap these next week as well, but that's our flow recap for the week. Again, if you're interested in trying unusual whales, I do have a 10% discount code available. And if you're interested in taking premium alerts, we offer a lot of premium alerts in Stock Hub. Keith does a lot of live streams as well. 38 years trading, has worked for hedge funds, has a lot of knowledge, really great guy. Yeah, that's all I got. We'll really hit on these next week as well, but have a great weekend, everyone.